Star Trek deals better in broad strokes, right? Usually it does. Things like DS9 worked because it wasn't referencing like World War II, really. It wasn't like, it wasn't aping. The Dominion War wasn't just like the Nazis and like we have a D-Day and everything like that. It kind of does because that's what war does. Like you have a sort of seize the moment, take back territory kind of thing to it. But it felt like it was a unique broad stroke look at war, basically. And the 9/11 Xindi storyline is a little bit too specific. But what it runs into is the problem you were saying. When they run into something that they want to comment on as a reference to 9/11, they do it in the broad Star Trek way, which is just to say that I'm an extremist, and the Star Trek characters go, you're bad. Extremism is bad. And so they can't do anything interesting with, as you were saying, they're going to be gun shy about casting Middle Eastern looking people in this. They can't do that. They're going to be gun shy about talking about anything somewhat specific to what fuels modern jihadism and stuff like that. They're like, we can't touch that either. So you're left with this very simple, again, childish look that Enterprise has to take about a complicated topic that was happening at the time. You know what I mean? And it's this is semi-insulting that this is what the best that we can do at this point. And it just leaves me wondering, maybe the Xindi Arc wasn't a good idea in the first place, you know? Like,
I think they're in a tough spot though, because it's like, how do you not comment on it?
Yeah.
You know, it's happening as you're making the show, and I think as you're making the show in the room, watching everything that's happening, you're making a science fiction show, you're making a speculative fiction show that is used many times in the past, has been a tool to analyze current events or possible future events, and I mean that's what sci-fi is for.
Yep.
How do you do it as it's happening in a way that is satisfying but not insulting, but also satisfying and not like I feel like if you get too into the weeds of it, I'm not saying you can't, because I think you can. But it's like, I think there's a line that they have to, they're walking, of not being able to comment on it really in any specific way other than, you know, this
just a sort of like vague overview of what the things are.
A specific example, but there's plenty of them. You've got this sort of like greeting card kind of analysis of what's going on, because it's not like they're going to get to the Xindi and it's going to be like they find out that Starfleet has been sending guns to the people who have been oppressing the Xindi, which is what it's like. Whoa, we can't start getting into that shit. So it's like they're in this weird position where it's I don't know. I think I appreciate that they're doing it, because ultimately the message that they're sending out with these episodes isn't a war hockey nationalist kind of message.
Yep.
Given what was going on. So honestly, I would be interested to know, and I'm sure we have some listeners who watched this when they aired, if any of this stuff read as a little bit more edgy than it does now. Because I can see, you know, the Dixie Chicks got canceled. Yeah. Because they dared question the president, you know? Yeah. I think, I wonder if this show doing what they're doing did have a bit more edge at the time, given the fervor that was up in the moment. But I don't know. This far removed, it does seem a little bit kind of it's not as insightful as it could be. Yeah, and I would definitely agree that I don't think it's insightful in any way. I think that it feels a little bit like reductive and repetitious from other Star Treks too at the same time. It's like, kind of, not to interrupt, I'm sorry, it's kind of repetitive in and of itself too. Yeah. Because every time that they do a story that directly is kind of like an allegory for what's going on, it's more or less the same story. Yeah. Or like the outcome is the same, where it's like, shit, Yeah, this is just going to be bad for both of us. Like in how many different ways you can stack that story together.
Yeah. I think that, like, because TOS took on topics of the era, right? Like TOS talked about civil rights, and like Let That Be a Less Battlefield is kind of like racial animosity or like prejudice against each other. But I think the magic of making it work in a Star Trek show is to make it that sort of silly, exaggerated version of what the real thing is.